Hi, I'm the Nostalgia Critic. I gave up on my dream so you don't have to. Channel Awesome was a once prominent website that featured Doug Walker, aka the Nostalgia Critic, who received a lot of fame on YouTube for doing retro reviews of films from the 80s and 90s. Films that, while we loved them as kids, didn't really hold up when you're an adult and look back on them. Now, due to copyright claims that were very harsh at YouTube at the time, he went and made his own thing. And to his credit, it became pretty successful, and he was able to help launch other creators like Linkara and the Nostalgia Chick, Todd in the Shadows, and the Angry Joe Show. This resulted in crossovers with Channel Awesome, where people would come on each other's videos, and at the time they were making quite a bit of money and getting some brand recognition. This was back in the early days of video hosting on the internet, before YouTube dominated the entire market. It seemed like at the time you could go start your own thing. Now, that's a ridiculous idea in today's world. Why would you go start your own website when you're going to get a lot more views somewhere else? But people kind of forget that at this time, it was a little bit of a pirate ship. We didn't know back then how the internet was going to go, so why not make your own website and try to make your own brand? It seemed like a good idea at the time, and Channel Awesome showed that it could work. I was a big fan, and I mean a big fan. I watched everything from Doug. I watched everything from Todd. I watched everything from Spoonie, who got a lot of acclaim, and rightfully so, for his in-depth video game reviews that we'd never really seen before. The only thing I could equate it to would be Tech TV or G4, a network that felt like people hanging out and just talking about things they were passionate about. It never felt like it was influenced by corporations or greed, but just by interest, and we could relate to it because we all understood kind of what they were talking about when it came to technology and video games and movies and media in general. Now, for a short bubble of time where Doug was doing crossovers with James Rolfe, the Angry Video Game Nerd, and was really going around to a lot of cons and festivals, it seemed like he couldn't be stopped and Channel Awesome was going to be around for a long time. But due to years of mismanagement, poor decision-making, and a misuse of money, Channel Awesome eventually fell, and Doug went back to YouTube, where he started, and now he does the Nostalgia Critic reviews again, even though he tried to quit the series a long time ago with its final episode. Looking back on it now, it's really not shocking what happened, because Doug always showed a high level of incompetence. He always came across to me as a guy that was a bad actor and writer and had failed as an artist for years, but he had found this niche on the internet reviewing nostalgic films, letting us know that, hey, I saw these too and they kind of suck. You know, James Rolfe, what he did that was so intelligent was that he would find these video games we all played as kids that were very difficult, but now we were seeing through his videos that they were just poorly designed. Doug, on the other hand, would go look at movies that we loved as children, like The Wizard, and realize, like, wait, this is a piece of crap. How dumb was I? It was a gimmick that really paid off, and it still does, even though for the most part Doug reviews a lot of modern movies now, and his content's not nearly as good as it used to be. The reason I'm making a video on this, and it's a video I've been wanting to make for a long time, is because of the recent Google document controversy that's happened with Channel Awesome, where years of stuff has come out, including sexual harassment, abuse, favoritism, and just poor management in general, especially by the guy who ran Channel Awesome, not just Doug and Rob themselves. In this document, a lot of ex-employees for Channel Awesome talk about Mike Michaud being very abusive, angry, and just not good with money. And you could see this in the content. There was a time that Doug raised thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars for Channel Awesome, and the content he produced looked like YouTube videos from the mid-2000s. Even today, the quality of his videos reminds me of home movies I used to make with my friends as a teenager. The weird thing about Doug is that he doesn't seem to have any natural talent outside of a little bit of an analytical ability that he can look at things, but I've always felt that with the Nostalgia Critic and Doug and himself, it's what's he's talking about, the content of the video, that is what sells it, not really him himself. Not that he's funny or what he's saying is that interesting, but the clips and movies he's looking at themselves are very funny. Now, that isn't a criticism. This is very common on the internet. Everyone sort of does this. They use other people's stuff to perpetuate their own greatness. And I'm not going to pretend that I'm any better than that. You can call me a sellout all you want, but in my opinion, most people who are on the internet were hacks from the beginning. There's certainly a lack of originality and integrity that exists throughout the internet, and I think people who are overly critical of this are, I don't know, they're kind of ignoring their own faults in a way. So I'm not making this video as an attack on Doug and his poorly produced videos with terrible cinematography, his terrible acting, comedic timing, and just lack of awareness.
Acting!
the way that their politics have annoyed me for years, in particular Cuck in the Shadows. Because really, they're allowed to have their opinions, they're allowed to feel the way they do, and they're allowed to have an agenda. And besides, a lot of people already left Channel Awesome, including Nostalgia Chick and Todd in the Shadows. They didn't want to stick around. Spoonie went to complete chaos and just fell off the face of the earth because he wouldn't follow up on any of his promises on Patreon, and now he's sort of irrelevant even though he has 100,000 subscribers. The sad part about this, and what makes it such a tragedy, is that Channel Awesome and everyone involved with it chose what could have been before we gave ourselves all over to YouTube, Facebook, and Google, when there was a time that it seemed at least that we could make our own content and control it, and we didn't have to deal with any kind of censorship. But those days are over. The pirate radio died, and so did the pirate internet. Sure, you may still torrent stuff, but it's not LimeWire like it used to be. You might still stream movies online, but it's not like it used to be. You might still watch really hardcore, edgy content on YouTube, but you're not really going to websites that much anymore and watching exclusive videos. And I understand, convenience is key, especially in today's world where things are just becoming smaller and smaller, yet more expansive at the same time. This Google document's important because it exposes a lot of things that a lot of us had heard for years and that we already knew. In particular, that Doug really doesn't know how to manage a company and doesn't know how to run a business at all. And he also doesn't know how to keep morale up, and he apparently treated his staff rather crappy. I've always said that Doug's somewhat like Tommy Wiseau, which is funny considering he played Tommy Wiseau in a couple videos, but really when you think about it, when you read about the production of big events like Kick-Assia, it sounds like Doug didn't know what he was doing, like he didn't even understand basic framing, cutting, editing, anything basic that you should know, filmmaking 101, stuff that I learned when I was 14 or 15 years old. This was very evident in most of his videos, which once again, I just don't want to point this out, terrible production value, but it didn't really matter. I mean, they were okay for internet standard videos. It wasn't anything that great. It's not like you were expecting anything from Channel Awesome. You accepted what they were. But the thing that I want to focus on is ego. And that's what's always bothered me about Doug and everyone at Channel Awesome in general. They don't like criticism. They don't like people telling them what to do, as they say, which is just usually a suggestion about how to improve your content. This is, of course, why the death of Spoonie happened. He got into his own little echo chamber and he couldn't deal with the public telling him, like, hey, dude, get your head out of your ass and make what you promised. Unfortunately, even though Todd in the Shadows and Nostalgia Chick and a few other members, in particular Angry Joe, are still very successful, they're never going to get back that group thing that was really important at one time, where it felt like the content creators could stick together against the man. Now, there's a lot of people to blame for this. Rob, Mishad, everyone who was involved with Channel Awesome, maybe not the Team 4-Star guys, they're pretty sweet, but Doug in particular needs to be blamed because he started this whole thing, going back over a decade. And what a time it was. There's that great video where Doug goes to quit his job. And it was like a punk rock moment for all of us. Wow, I can just go quit my crappy day job and do internet videos and make money off of it? Holy shit! And as someone who makes money off internet videos, I can say that I still have a sweet spot for guys like Smosh or Doug because they kind of inspired me that I could do this. I thought, well, if these jackasses can get famous on the internet, anyone can. And I don't mean that in any negative way. It's like when you're a kid and you're told that you can grow up and be the president someday and you don't really believe it. But these guys made me believe, yeah, I could be successful. I mean, there was a sense at the time that if you could get enough followers and attention to your videos that you could join Channel Awesome or ScrewAttack.com and become a frequent content creator. But none of it really lasted. James Rolfe's still on YouTube and made a movie that was a total disaster where he just blew $450,000. Doug does sketches now with really bad sketch comedians with a lot of green screen. He doesn't even really use clips anymore like he used to, and his videos are more indulgent than ever. Todd's pretty much doing the same thing and hasn't developed his production values or editing skills over a decade, but who cares? At least Todd's still who he is. And for a lot of it, they've all kind of criticized each other. Some still like each other, but there's been a lot of stuff said and a lot of drama that's been out there, especially if you've ever went on 4chan or anything like that and read about this stuff. Now, I plan on doing a few videos on this. I don't want to just do one long 2-hour, 3-hour video covering everything with Channel Awesome and my personal experience with it. So for this first video, which I'm just trying to give you a little setup here about where we're going to go, I guess what I would really like to get across here is that we really screwed ourselves, all of us. And Channel Awesome isn't just a thing to look at about how these people screwed up. It's a way to look at ourselves and how we all screwed up on the internet, including the Phil DeFrancos, including the Smoshes and the PewDiePies. Now, yeah, I know these people have all made millions of dollars and been very successful and could basically retire. But at the same time, they never were able to build a brand outside of these companies that we still need to get any kind of content watched. I mean, people still need YouTube, they still need Facebook, they still need Twitter. And with all of the politics and the censorship and everything that everyone's complaining about now, all I can say is, well, we dug our own grave and now we have to sleep in it. Doug, instead of taking all that money that he got from all of these people that were fans that supported this thing and turned his Channel Awesome thing into something really great, something that could compete with television, something that really could challenge the status quo. Instead, it came across like he just pocketed the money and just shot whatever he could with whatever cheap equipment he had. I mean, remember that game show he had that was absolutely awful and cringe? And I don't even understand it all. I don't know why Spoonie had a breakdown and quit doing long-form content and just live streams now. I don't know why Doug quit talking about nostalgic stuff so much, and I don't really know why James Rolfe decided to shoot his movie in California instead of his hometown and make it on a lower budget and actually do an angry video game nerd movie. Instead, it felt like he was trying to be Steven Spielberg or something, and perhaps Doug thought of himself as a George Lucas. What's really upsetting is these guys are often considered experts, at least in the internet terms, and really, when you actually see them talk outside of their personas, they don't seem like they're experts that much in film. Now, James does. James seems to have a vast knowledge when it comes to horror movies and schlock and so on, and I would say that he's the far superior artist out of the two, but Doug, on the other hand, is, oh my god. What can you say? He loves the Animaniacs, he loves Looney Tunes, he has a certain sensibility and a sense of humor that's really interesting, but he made these top 10 lists like Roger Rabbit. And all the stuff he says in that video's Normie 101. And I'm not saying that that's bad. You know, if you're a teenager and you watch that stuff, like when I was probably 18 and I was watching his stuff, it was pretty cool. You could say maybe that I grew out of it, that it's just not for me anymore. And there's probably some truth to that. But at the same time, I think it's a quality drop that has a lot to do with not caring. Doug, Rob, and everyone involved with Channel Awesome was never willing to grow, evolve, and become better, and change things, and they weren't ever willing to really listen, and they really didn't know how to handle any of this money or anything that happened to them. It seemed like they were more obsessed with the fame than they were with producing good stuff. I feel bad because I really like people like Lin Cara. I think his Power Rangers series was really fun. I think his stuff on Star Trek and comic books is great, and I think that guy knew a lot of stuff and really made fun videos. I think the guy that used to talk about musicals made good content, and I used to watch all of this stuff. It was fun to scroll around Channel Awesome and see this, but now it's just not convenient anymore, and why would I? And honestly, they all kind of suck. Do I still occasionally watch Todd's 10 Best Pop Songs of the Year? Sure. Do I watch Nostalgia Critic's It review? Sure. But like a lot of content creators, such as Chris Stuckman or Collider, they just feel like they're selling out already and they're already Jimmy Fallon-esque, like they're already trying to join some kind of corporation, which a lot of them already have. And the sad part about this is they've become the very thing that they were fighting against, something that we all were really excited about, which was going against the sterile nature of television, how boring sitcoms had become, how lame the content had become, how much we hated commercials. Instead, it's all about ad revenue now. It's all about these big event videos like, you know, let's talk about The Last Jedi for 20-upteenth videos. And even I've done that. I did several Last Jedi videos, but there's people who do Last Jedi videos every day. How many times can you complain about Rian Johnson? How many times can you complain about Kathleen Kennedy and not just repeat yourself over and over again? But this is where we've led ourselves. We've led ourselves to an era where we're just honestly network television, except with worse production values. So before I go into the next videos, which is going to cover guys like Todd in the Shadows and how I feel about him and really criticizing a lot of things about his personality and his actions on social media, and before maybe I explore all of the discussion of sexual harassment and the mistreatment of female staff at Channel Awesome, and of course when I criticize Doug extensively and the quality of his videos, I just want to say, at one time I was a fan, and I did care, and I did feel a certain connection to these people, and I did hope that it would pay off one day. And even though Doug still has 1 million subscribers on YouTube and his videos still consistently get over 1 million hits, it feels like he's never really going to top that, and he's never going to get that famous outside of a niche audience. The irony of this, and the funny thing about the Tommy Wiseau comparison, is that Tommy's become a mythical figure. Tommy's had books and movies made about him. He's really as famous now as he's ever been, and you could say Doug peaked a few years ago. And now with this Google document change the channel hashtag controversy that's all over social media and everybody making videos on this, I thought, well, I might as well jump on the bandwagon. A big reason I never did this video is because I felt Mr. Medicare did what I wanted to say. I would highly recommend those videos because any point that anyone's going to make, I think he already made beautifully and articulated it with much more research and evidence to back up his claims, and it's a lot of things that I had felt for a long time. Still, these guys need to get credit for showing us that they kind of gave us the way of how to make money and do this on the internet, how to be content creators, because there was no rule book, so you had to figure it out on your own. And while it seems like that it's all falling apart now, and even Channel Awesome's losing thousands of subscribers a day, and everybody's just dogging on them on the internet, and of course they're going to have to respond, and guys like Chris Stuckman probably aren't going to show up on videos anymore. I just want to get this across. The deeper I go into this, the more mean it's going to seem. The more angry, the more bitter it's going to come across to a lot of you. And a lot of the stuff I'm going to show is going to come off like maybe I'm trying to nitpick, or I'm trying to just gain followers and views from these guys' disastrous decision making. But that's not what this is. This is made as an example of how not to make these same mistakes. Because if we keep making the same mistakes, we're never going to be what we can be. And what that is, the new era of media, is the renaissance of the artist controlling their own stuff and not just a corporation like, let's say, Disney, factory making all of these things and just running the movie industry or the music industry and how it fell apart because they didn't know how to handle Napster. There's still hope that we can overcome our vices and our own flaws and actually do something really special here and represent something for people that want to connect to each other. And maybe we can give young content creators a sense of hope for the future. Sometimes it's better to burn out than to fade away, because when you burn out, everyone else notices the fire, and they understand that maybe they can fight the heat a little bit more next time when they try to do something like this. So before we really get into this, and I know I've been repeating myself a little bit, Channel Awful isn't awful because of what they wanted to do. Channel Awful is awful because of the people behind it. And let's blame those people, not the spirit of what they represented. And hopefully that spirit can live on in other content creators. So, I'll see you guys in the next video. Like, comment, and subscribe, and thanks for watching.